Hello, welcome to HarperCollins. I'm very excited to be able to share with you a few of my favorites that are coming out this fall and winter. First up is We Know You Remember by Tove Alsterdal. I'm not a big mystery reader, but I have a really soft spot for international mysteries, and I could not put this down. Ulster is one of Sweden's best-selling crime writers, and she's making her U.S. debut in this really dark, atmospheric police procedural that was actually based on a real crime that took place in Sweden in the 80s. It won the Best Swedish Crime Novel of the Year, and it's a suspenseful and so well-written mystery about the nature of guilt and memory. The story begins with a man taking a detour from a business trip to drive through the village where he grew up, and that he hasn't visited since he was convicted 20 years before at the age of 14 for a really horrific crime. He was released at 18, but no one in the town has forgotten him or the crime. When he impulsively stops at his previous home, he finds his father dead. He's recognized leaving the house by a neighbor who's shocked to see him back in town, detained, and an investigation is started. So the police detective assigned to the case is also from the village. She's a great character, and she begins a compulsive hunt for the truth about both the deaths. The story will draw you in and surprise you, and it's already received 2 early starred reviews. Then there's Reprieve by James Hahn Matson. It's coming in early October, and it too has already received strong early reviews and a spot on a number of best of lists. Here's the setup. It's 1997, and 4 people have made it to the final room in a really intense, full-contact escape room, famous for its horrors. If the group can stick it out without yelling reprieve, they'll win a large cash prize, but during their adventures, one of the contestants is actually murdered. The crime is examined through a montage of the characters' backstories, trial transcripts, and witness statements. It's nail-biting horror mixed with a mystery that really is about racism, hate, complicity, along with our weird obsession with fear as entertainment. I think it's as multi-layered as the movie Parasite. And Esquire has already called it an American classic in the making. Pretty impressive. Um, Also on sale this fall is a novel called Burnt Coat by the amazing British author Sarah Hall. This is a powerful and shockingly timely novel by a writer who's been longlisted 2 times for the Booker and has twice won Britain's Story Prize. It's her first book in 6 years. It's a beautifully written story that's set in northern England during a deadly pandemic. The story centers around a celebrated sculptor who's isolated in her studio. It's called Burnt Coat, and is coming to terms with her life through a shifting timeline that moves from a loving but troubled childhood to her early artistic success, a passionate relationship with a Turkish immigrant that begins in isolation as the pandemic is sweeping the world. This is one of those books where after you read the last page, you'll want to go back and read it again. There are so many themes to take in this book. Being a female artist, becoming famous very young, mortality, passion, immigration, and probably most importantly, the need for human connection. This is a book that I think has prize-winning potential. And then a few highlights from the winter list, starting in January, which isn't too far away. Our lead read for the season is a book called Notes on an Execution. This author's debut novel was called Girl in the Snow. It got great reviews and was an Indie Next pick, and she does not disappoint with her new novel. It's a really unique story of suspense that combines a page-turning plot with literary writing and really thought-provoking themes. As the last 12 hours in the life of a serial killer play out, the past unspools through the stories of the women in his life, his mother, his wife, her twin sister, and the police detective whose perseverance finally leads to the capture. What makes this book really stand out is its strong feminist approach to our cultural obsession with true crime, serial killers, and stories about missing or dead girls. Rather than focusing on the murder, which so many books do, it centers on the women, the pain that was caused by the violence he inflicted, and the possibilities that he stole from his victims. The book also looks at capital punishment and what justifies justice and what that really means. If you have a chance, look at her behind the book essay in Edelweiss. It is really fascinating. Another favorite of mine on the winter list is The Caretakers by Amanda Bester Siegel. This is a really exciting debut, and I think it's probably best described as a literary drama, one of those books that kind of falls between genres. It's set in an affluent suburb of Paris, and it opens with an American au pair being accused of the death of one of her charges. I'm not sure what I expected when I started this, but it is so well plotted, it's poignant, and it's really complex. The writing is very strong, and the author explores what actually happened through the voices of other women in the community, other au pairs, a struggling French teacher, a wealthy teen, a socialite neighbor, as well as the young woman accused of the crime, Alina. Ultimately, it's just a deep dive into privilege, wealth, community, being an outsider in another country. And I know you're thinking this sounds a bit like Big Little Lies, and I agree, there it does a little bit, but this is so fresh, and the politics and culture of France add a whole other dimension to the story. Elizabeth McCracken and Julia Phillips are both fans, and McCracken has already called it bold and brilliant. So really looking forward to that one. And finally, an incredible debut novel called Woman Eating by Claircoda. This is the lead title from our imprint of books in translation, Harper Via, and wow, what a story. It is an original novel about a young artist who's also a lonely, mixed-race vampire who's trying to find a way to balance her desire to live among humans with her never-ending hunger for their blood. It's touching, it's so smart, and it's filled with clever metaphors on eating, body image, intimacy, and racial identity. If you're a fan of books like My Year of Rest and Relaxation, you will not be able to put this down. Thank you so much for listening, and if you haven't already, be sure to check out all the other recorded Harper Rep suggestions.